everybody, we're back.
Hi.
So we have David Randall is our tour guide to take us through the Luxembourg wrap up for the 15 Nations Global Tour and introduce the new country for the next 3 weeks of work. And Darren joined us today.
Yeah.
Hi, Darren.
Hello.
We pulled him in. So
It's very last minute.
yeah, I'll go ahead and we're going to share the screen here so you guys can see what work was done on Luxembourg. And I'm going to turn it right over to David.
You have the Luxembourg page up, or do you need? Oh yeah, you do have that. Okay, great. So yeah, I'm very happy to have Darren with us today because Darren has been with the project from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we've had one of our participants on, so he can give a little bit different perspective. As I've talked about in the past, I do the setup for the projects, and then I participate a little bit, but because I've got so many other projects going on, I often don't get into the deep research. But Darren is actually one of the people who um, figures out the difficult task of how to. I'm sorry, my voice is going out a little bit. The difficult task of figuring out how to document these the notables from all these genealogically obscure countries. So this time we did Luxembourg. Luxembourg was a little bit different because it's a small country, but it's not necessarily it's a modern country, so they have records and um, not quite as obscure as some of the other countries that we've done in the past. And the proof of that is the fact that we actually were able to connect 14 of our 15 notables. So we only had one notable out of the 15 that we were not able to connect this time.
Wow, that's great.
The record of the past, I think, was 9, and we had a couple 8s, but never this close to completing it. The only one, if you scroll down to the notables, the only individual that we were not able to connect was Louis Pilot. He is considered one of Luxembourg's greatest football players, or as we call it in the United States, soccer. I have just posted, if anybody's noticed on G2G today, I posted a football project, international football project. We have 88 legendary football players from 88 different countries. So it is our first global sports project. So we'll see.
Wow.
It's like I said, it's 88 different countries. People have been asking me for a more globally inclusive project. We've done baseball and others that are very American center. So this one is absolutely, like I said, 88 different countries are represented. So we'll see how enthusiastic people are now that the challenge is actually up there. It's not as it's one thing to request it. It's another thing to actually get in and do the work. So we'll see how that happens. But anyway, Louis Pilot is now over in that project, representing Luxembourg. We have no information on him so far. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not out there. It could just be that we were focusing so much on the others that we didn't actually get into solving his line. So we'll see how the football fans do, and maybe they've got more information than we were able to come up with.
I can find anything, and I like went back to them like 5 times and kind of find something, and nothing. So.
Yeah, and we get that. Sometimes we get lucky, just like with any other project. Sometimes we find the parents are already online and all it is one connection, and other times we search for the full 3-week period and just don't come up with anything. And again, sometimes it's just that we've got 15 individuals to focus on, and sometimes some of the more challenging ones fall through the cracks, and we don't spend as much time. Somebody else could go on and find, in one afternoon, find the information that we overlooked. So It doesn't mean that it's not out there. It just means that we didn't find it. But I'll take 14 out of 15. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. I posted a question on Discord and I don't think I got any answers yet, but I was curious, and maybe Darren can answer. What was there some common thread that made Luxembourg easier than our other, what do we have, other 13 countries that we've done? Some reason that we were able to get so many connected as opposed to our other countries?
Uh, well, in my experience, like a lot of the, like, yes, Luxembourg's a country, but like you were going into France, you're going into Germany, going into Belgium,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and then there was quite a few that someone had already made some Luxembourg profiles already, so we were able to do a connection in Luxembourg as well. So it's like, for me, it was all over the show. And I think there was one profile that I did, and I ended up having to go 10 profiles before I made a connection. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all over for me.
Yeah, I think what I have found, and it's sometimes surprising, but the more connected to other Western countries, the easier it is to make the connections. So if we get a country, like Malaysia, which we actually did fairly well with, but with Malaysia, if we don't have a lot of Malaysian profiles already on WikiTree, so in order to make the connections, we have to find relatives who left Malaysia and went to other countries or married somebody who was from another country in order to make the connections. And oftentimes we are able to do that. And sometimes it's surprising with a country, say, like Egypt or Kenya, because um, they were occupied or they were colonized by Western countries. They often interacted with people who were from the West and married people that were from the West. So, or moved to the West. That's not uncommon, and maybe not the notable, but if we can get the brother or the cousin, um, you know, 2 or 3 steps removed, that moved to the West or married somebody that went to the West. And again, sometimes it's surprising because you would think that Kenya, um, Egypt, those countries might be more difficult than they were because they have Western connections. So Luxembourg, because it's right in the center of Europe, I think that was part of why it was, or probably the main reason it was so easy, is that number one, they have decent records in Luxembourg, but number two, they had a lot of interaction with other countries, particularly because they're so small. Um, People left Luxembourg. Um, Even if they didn't move out, they maybe, like I said, maybe married somebody from another country, had a brother or sister, or cousin that married somebody from another country. So we would get into from there into the French records, the German records, the British records, and even the American records. Um, so yeah, so we did really well. We actually had quite a few that were connected um, very early on, right in the beginning, and some others that were not so easy. The one, if you'll scroll all the way down, Azure down to the very bottom, the last one we connected was the Luxembourgian Prime Minister. Um, he is the first um, he is the first gay Prime Minister of Luxembourg and the third gay um, head of state in the world. And so he is actually legally married to another gentleman. And we had him connected with his husband very quickly. Um, but neither one of them we were able to get very far with their immediate family right away. But what we did know about the prime minister is that his great granduncle was a famous composer. And let me see if I can.
It was in Russia, wasn't it?
Yeah, Azure. If you click on his name, and we'll open up his profile. And then let's do his ancestry. And if you scroll down to his mother's side, and so the one I wanted to talk about here was Vera, his grandmother. So she was our missing link. So her father is the brother. I don't know. Did Darren, were you able to say the name of the composer, or we could pull that up. Let's
No.
Sergei Rachmaninoff.
Yeah.
I'm not big on classical music, but people that probably recognize the name. Apparently, a very prominent composer and pianist. If you go to his if you click Arcades Sergei, yes. Sergei Rachmaninoff. So he was already on WikiTree, and he was connected to the tree. So, so we knew he was the great granduncle of the prime minister. So the trick is now to figure out how to get him connected to the prime minister, connected to his great uncle. And actually, if you'll scroll back up a little bit, Azure, to if you look there, he died in Beverly Hills. So this is a good example. He was actually born in Russia, not Luxembourg. But you know, where the Russian records are very hard to get access to, the fact that he moved to Beverly Hills, that's where he did his career, made a name for himself. So you've got a Russian composer, but the records, we can access the records in Los Angeles fairly easily and make a connection. Now, we didn't do that. Somebody did that previously. The connection was made. We did edit it to some degree, but he was already connected. So if we can go back to the family tree. There you go. Okay. So his mother is still living. The prime minister's mother is still living, but there's a lot of public information about her. She's not quite a notable herself, but in Luxembourg, she's quite prominent. She's held some public offices and done some charitable work. She was a fashion model. She was also an airline stewardess and ran the Human Services Department for a major United States bank, although I was never able to find out what the bank was. But she's had quite a career, but she's still private because she doesn't raise to the level of notability that WikiTree requires. And there is a lot of secondhand information stating that she was the daughter of Vera, but we couldn't find any direct confirmation of that, any primary evidence. So, but we did know that her grandfather was Arcady because she talks about it. There's interviews. She's gone back to the hometown and participated in various ceremonies. So it's very well documented who her grandfather was. But we couldn't find anything that listed her grandfather's children, and we couldn't find anything official that listed her mother. But finally, in the end, we decided to just go ahead and make the connection because we knew that the grandmother existed. As I stated to the group, that's just kind of a biological fact that if we know, actually, it's her mother. If we know her grandfather and we know her, we know there's a mother in between. So, so that was a frustrating challenge because we had this connection from the very beginning, and we just were never able to find that documentation. But we did create a profile for her to make the connection just because, again, we obviously know she existed. But that gives you an example of how these connections are made. That was one of our most challenging ones. And like I said, we had that connection almost from day one. And 3 weeks later, we still can't quite prove that missing link. So a little bit frustrating, but we've got it up there. And again, that made our 14 out of 15. Let's go back to the main list of notables.
Christine is mentioning that she can't access the football project page. It's showing no public information.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I checked that, but I can fix that real quickly.
And I'm dropping that link
Um,
into the chat here.
Okay, well, that'll make it even easier for me. With
And then I'm
with
also
the
posting.
Sourceathon,
Yeah.
with the Sourceathon all weekend, and I had 3 projects opening up today, so trying to do all of that at once. I'm
You're
sure I
pretty
missed a
busy.
few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm also posting the G2G post that you did out there on the chat too for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. If anyone ever has this sort of thing happen, like you see a GDG post and it's got a thing, just send a quick message to the person who did it, because like David will be able to see all the details on this football legends page, because of course he's the profile manager for the space page. But if you, well, someone else can have a look at it and it's not working, or like for our 50 Nations space pages, there was a few times that the photos that he puts up didn't show for everybody else. So if it happens, just send a quick message
I really,
saying, it's gone wrong.
I really appreciate anybody that proofreads when you got, like I said, this football project's 88 individuals. There's bound to be, a link here and there that doesn't work, or a picture that doesn't show up. One of the things that I didn't find out or figure out until very late into the 15 Nations tour is that living profiles or living photographs of living notables don't show up on the link. So, but I don't know that because they show up to the profile manager, which is me, so I can see them.
Right.
But I had no idea that nobody else could. So again, I really appreciate. There's a lot of things that when you're the profile manager or a project manager or leader, that you get to see that other people don't. But then that makes it hard to know that nobody else can see it. So if
Yeah,
anybody
and
notices a glitch in it,
a way around that is to maybe have a space page that has images for your notables that
so
you
that's what
upload.
I do now.
Yeah, so
Yes,
you upload that to everything, and then you
yeah,
can have the picture maybe in the image template within the body of their biography.
exactly. So you'll actually see today when we upload the next nation. Um, because I got behind, I did not get the two living notables photographs up. They'll be up by the end of the day, but because I have to upload them to another page, um, just for that reason. They're on
Yeah,
their profile pages, but they won't show up on my free space page.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so
Well, like for instance, for the sports page, George Best, he's Northern Ireland rather than United Kingdom.
mhm.
Like he said, for Northern Ireland, and that's the sort of proofreading that David does so much work, and it's quite easy to make a little hiccup.
Yeah,
So
Azure, do
it's really
you
nice
want to
for
pull up
people.
it's a little off topic, but do you want to pull up the football page and just
Yeah,
we can show how
I
it's
have it
set
up
up?
here.
Yeah, because it really is a global project as well as a sports project. It's under the Notable Sports project. But as I said, if you look down the list there, I've got 88 different countries. And if anybody can come up, the requirements are they have to be deceased, and they have to be a notable, meaning they have to have a Wikipedia page. So if there's any countries I missed that somebody can come up with a notable from
Well, let's say
from one
New
of the
Zealand.
countries that meets the criteria. There's a
Oh,
lot
Yeah,
of countries that today are very active in football and have a lot of living players, but I need them to be deceased in order to include them in the project.
I'll have to look for a New Zealand one.
Yeah, and New Zealand's a good example. I couldn't find. I don't believe I ever came up with a deceased New Zealand player. Um, um, the interesting thing, I only have a few minutes when I'm doing each. With 88 soccer players, football players. I don't have time to do a lot of research and reading into it. I could very easily get on a go down a rabbit hole with some of these, because just the little blurbs that I read on Wikipedia, some of them are really fascinating stories outside of their um, soccer careers. But there's Pele. A lot of people will know him. A lot of these individuals, and I don't know what it is about football players, but they died very young. Um, but a lot of them, it appears, were assassinated in some of the Eastern European countries and elsewhere. Um, they 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 die mysteriously, and there's speculation, conspiracy theories, whether they're true or not, I don't know. But that the government was behind it, or sometimes um, there was one individual who lost an important. He actually did I forget what they call it, because I don't follow football. That was the other challenge here, is I don't follow football, so I don't know who any of these people are. But but he scored a goal, for the other team. There's a name for it, but accidentally scored a
Own
point for
goal.
the other team, and they lost the game. And a couple weeks later, he was dead. And speculation that um, the government or the powers that be were upset that he lost this important game, because football is really, really very important in a lot of these countries in ways that I don't think in America we would understand. I don't know about other countries, but I know we hear about these riots and um, security issues going on around the world at some of these games, especially if you have other political issues. When you've got Pakistan versus India, or games like that, they can be quite dangerous and even deadly at times. So anyway, that was just fascinating to me, how many of them died mysteriously at quite a young age. Then again, you've got others that lived very long. I think um, there was one who lived to be 99, something like that. Quite old. Was one of the oldest. He was the last player to play for Czechoslovakia and Hungary before World War II. So again, then there were some that died in concentration camps. Some of the early Eastern European soccer players that were, for whatever reason, um, detained, and then died in some of the Nazi prisons. So and then some of the Soviet prisons later on. So just a lot of really interesting stories. And one thing that I emphasize with our notables projects, they are not simply connection projects. A lot of the people, well, in this case, the football players are all unconnected. But in some of our other ones, we have a new television project up right now that went up today. Half of them are already connected to the tree. What we're looking for is not just connections, but we want to get their CC7s up, and we also want to get their biographies written, and just some of them cleaned up. You've got some that are cut and pasted from Wikipedia. We want to get that fixed. We want to find good pictures. So there's all kinds of stuff that needs to be done. Some of them have the data up, but they're not written in a narrative form. So even if we can't get a connection, if we've got a Afghani soccer player and we can't access Afghani records, particularly now with the Taliban back in charge, they're not real good at sharing information. Um, they do actually, Afghanistan, I did do some research, and they do have a national archives and a national library, but they're not communicating the information right now. So, but we can still get the biography written. We can get, sometimes even if we can just get parents or siblings or a spouse up. Excuse me. So anyway, it's more than just connecting. Connecting's great, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done on a lot of our notables beyond just getting them connected. Okay, so are we ready to move on to our next nation? So Darren sent me a message the other day asking what regions we have left to research, and it is a little bit. There's a lot of gray area as to how you define a region. I'm using the United Nations definitions.
Did you want to
And
share a little bit more about the Luxembourgian? We only shared about 2. Did you
Oh,
want
you
to
want to do
share?
another one? Darren,
that-
which ones did you work on?
I think I had a look at all of them.
Yeah, I think we still have about. I think we have some time that we could spend a little bit more time on Luxembourg.
Well, Kurt von Francois, the second one, the geographer.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know,
Yeah, I did it. He's got connections to Namibia, so
Wow.
Africa. So there's a German colony there, and then there was also he also had I think it's one of his one of his brothers was a German general who fought in the Battle of Tannenberg and the Eastern Front in World War One. So it's like, yeah, sort of going towards Russia, going towards Africa, and yeah, it was interesting because I think I did a few of these profiles. I recognise quite a few of those names, but yeah, but that's
Great
the thing.
job.
Like they start in Luxembourg, and you end up in Africa. Or you end up having a notable general who.
Yeah, and although they were, it's a good example that although they were from Luxembourg, the family was from Luxembourg, um, they worked for the German government and the German military. So, and again, he lived in Namibia, which was then a German colony. So you really got 3 different countries that are all going to have various records, and access. So you just don't know where it's going to take you. And also because his brother was notable, that opens doors as well. Because if you get stuck finding info on him, you can go over and research his brother, and maybe find additional information that
I think
isn't listed.
Herman Carl von Francois, and I think I need to do a bit more work on him. Yeah, yeah, he's got a whole lot of medals and all that sort of stuff, and I'm not good at with doing notable profiles myself. I don't want to sort of do the cut and paste from Wikipedia. So it's like I find the notable biographies very hard. But if it's out there, someone else from Notables Project can come along and do these biographies and make it a whole lot better. And but if the profile's not there, you can't do that.
That's right. And that's what's so great about WikiTree is the collaboration.
Yeah. The problem is that sometimes people they log on and they see that, oh, the profile's already here, and they move on and they don't stop and collaborate. They may think, oh, somebody else is already working on it, or it's got a project manager, or the notables are managing it. But notables are just like any other profile. If you've got information, go ahead and add it. Or if you just think that the profile is sloppy, go in and clean it up. The notables as a project doesn't do a lot of profile development. We oversee the profiles, but we don't. As a project management team, there's just 2 of us, and we have 60,000 notables on WikiTree.
And growing all the time.
Yeah, that breaks down to 30,000 a piece. We're not managing all of those actively. So yeah, feel free. You don't need permission or anything to go in and fix them up just like any other profile.
Yeah, that lock is unlocked, so that means you're able to edit.
Yeah, if it's unlocked, there are a very small number of profiles that we do lock for security reasons, and usually it's I don't know for a fact that these are included, but they would be people like Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe, who tend to be subject to conspiracy theories.
Right. To
And
protect
because
yourself out.
WikiTree is open to anybody, we get people that sign up and on day one start going over and
Yeah.
modifying Elvis's profile, or talking about how JFK is still alive, that kind of thing. So we do
Right.
lock a few of our profiles, but it's a very small number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
Great
lock
job,
all the
you guys.
living. Yeah, all the living individuals are locked by WikiTree rules, but the
Right.
deceased ones usually you can get into. So if it's
Okay.
not locked, you're free to
Yeah.
do what you can do.
All right. Are we ready to find out what the next stop is?
All right. So let me finish what I was saying earlier. Is that
Oh, okay.
we only have two nations left. This next one, and then one after that. And there's two regions of the world that we have not reached yet. I'll take that back. There's actually four. We have not done North America because North America is Canada, the United States, and Mexico. We've done Latin America a couple of times. We've done the Caribbean, but we're not going to do United States or Canada because they're already overly represented on WikiTree. And the other one is Oceania, where
Yeah.
we've got Australia and New Zealand that are already very well represented with their own projects. Um, and I had hoped to do it, but I went through every little island country, and for the life of me, I could not find 15 deceased notables. I even tried to add them all up together, and I still couldn't come up with 15 deceased notables. So we're going to skip for now all the Polynesian and Micronesian countries. But for those that don't know, we do have a global project that is going to be starting on
Yep.
January 1st. We are going to have every single country represented, and Darren is going to be overseeing all of those little island countries. I
Yes.
think there were something. How many? Do you know how many there are, Darren? I have it right here.
No idea.
Yeah, I think it's.
And of course, there's quite a few countries that are sort of still colonies of other ones like American Samoa.
Yeah, there's probably close to a dozen, and and as Darren said, you got countries like Tahiti that are not actually independent countries, but they're not. Tahiti is overseen by France, but they're not really part of France. I mean, they're part of France technically, but they're not. They're not French. They're definitely their own ethnicity and culture. So we got to work out how we're gonna add all those in as well. But yeah, Darren's going to oversee that whole section of the world.
Yeah, and I say a question
So
from Rachel about Samoa, but the thing is, like,
Samoa,
if it's American Samoa, it doesn't count as a country because it's sort of run by the US, and that would take out the Rock, like all the wrestling Samoans. There'll be a ton of them, and of course they wouldn't count. I'd have to do Samoa, or it used to be run by New Zealand and Germany. And
that's it's a difficult. We've got in the United States, we've got Puerto Rico that wants very much to be recognized as part of America. Not everybody, but a number of people trying to get statehood, etc. And then you've got a place like American Samoa. That most people, even though it's called American Samoa, most Americans probably don't even know it's part of America. So you've got you got kind of a range of a range of levels of independence.
It's going to be a range of countries, and it's going to be interesting finding some notables to be as a base for the project, for the global project, for the ones that I'm looking after.
Yeah, and so we'll work all of that stuff out, and we hope that the members will join in and help us do that. And I've mentioned before, if anybody has a country that they want to start a project for, we'll have a base project available, but we need managers. So there's a country somebody's interested in, drop me a note, and we'll see about getting you hooked up with it. So let's move on to, so we've got 2 regions left. I'm not going to tell you the last one because that's for 3 weeks from now. But this region is actually East
Good.
Asia. We
Yeah,
did
so it's going to be hard.
Southeast Asia, which was Malaysia, but East Asia is includes China, it includes Japan. I looked into doing Japan, but we have a lot of Japanese profiles, and almost every notable I could come up with already had a profile, not only a profile, but a connected profile. So I'm going to have to look into that further. But Japan seems to be well represented, very well represented on WikiTree. So I went with another smaller but still significant country in the East. We are going to South Korea. And South Korea is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Number one, because they use a non-Latin, non-Arabic alphabet. Number two, because when they do use the Latin forms of their names, they reverse them. So if you want to scroll down to some of the names here, I can show some examples. Let's go a little bit further. These early ones do their names a little bit different here. But so yeah, here. So we have Na Hai Sok. Na is the last name, Na is the family name, but they put it in the front. The next one, Yu Guan Sun. Yu is the first name. I mean, it's the last name, but it goes in the front. But when you put it into WikiTree's template, if you put the last name, if you put Na as the last name, the name comes out backwards. It comes out as Hai Sak Na. So the way I've resolved that is I put the name in as preferred name. So I put the last name, I put the family name Na as the last name. If you'll open it up, it shows up backwards. And there's not much we can do about that because if you reverse it, then it gets alphabetized under H and not under N. So if you want to search, you have to put it in with the last name as the family name, and so it's a little bit complicated. But you see down below, in parentheses, I put the name in as it's spelled. Now I haven't because it's just a level of work that I'm not able to do when I'm setting these up. But we also have the Korean alphabet name. That gets complicated because there's Old Korean, New Korean, and there's often dialects. And then some of these people were actually from other countries like China or Japan, where they have an actually even a third or fourth or fifth version of the name. So that gets complicated. If you'll go back, I want to show you one in particular to show you how crazy this can get. Let's go back to the main list and let's scroll down a little bit further. And we'll go back and I'll introduce each of these people to you in a moment. Let's go right there to Ma Soyam. Right there. If we'll open up his, this profile is already on WikiTree. Now look at that name there. Now the name that he's known by is Ma Soyam, but you'd never know that by looking at this. So we as a team need to figure out how we can get the correct information. We like to do the their spelling, not ours, rule. And that's great to have the Korean version up there. But when there's so many different versions and you put them all in different boxes and then WikiTree kind of scrambles them all, it comes out kind of just as gibberish. So that's one of the challenges that we have to do. And when we get over to the global project and we have all 195 countries with different ways of doing names, we're going to have to figure out the best way to honor their language, keep it open so that we can do those that only speak or only use Latin characters can understand it, and then it makes some sort of sense when we've got it written onto the page. So again, that's one of our challenges. And it's a big challenge because, again, each country, when we've done Malaysia and we've done Egypt, we've run into the same thing with, a variety of different ways of presenting the name.
Yeah.
And then you've got individuals. We have one individual that moved to the United States, lived in the United States. He changed his name to Peter. So if we do the whole thing in Japanese, I'm sorry, in Korean, we can't even be sure that he ever spoke Korean. So he might not even be able to read his name if we do it in his native language. So my grandmother was a good example. She was born in Sweden, but moved to the United States as a young girl and didn't know any Swedish. So that's just one of the many elements we have to take into consideration. So let's scroll back up to the top,
Yeah.
and I'll go down the list and introduce each of these notables to you.
Yeah.
Okay, and I got to try to remember who each of them are because I've only met these people myself recently. But first one, we've got Andrew Kim Taegon. Now, what's interesting about him is he was born in 1821, and he's the only one with a Western name. His name was Andrew. But that was actually a baptismal name. His name was Kim Taegon. He is a religious martyr. He is a Catholic saint, was one of the first priests in Korea, and was executed for his beliefs. I believe he was about 25 years old when that happened, so he did not live a long life. But Pope John Paul II canonized him, and so he is now a Saint Andrew Kim Taegon, and he had. It's going to be interesting. He was pretty early. We got here 1821, 1846, a very short life. But I'll be interested because he is a saint. How much is actually written about him? You would think there'd be books about if you were that prominent that you became a saint. There'd be all kinds of books and information about you. So we'll see.
Fingers crossed this genealogical information.
Yeah, but sometimes we're surprised. We've got kings and queens who we can't find information on sometimes. And speaking of kings and queens, we've got Emperor Gojong. So he was the last Korean monarch. He declared himself, or was declared, um, the emperor of Japan. I'm sorry, of Korea. This was back when Korea was one country, and but as World War II came into effect, and World War One. After World War One, the Japanese wound up occupying Korea, and which is part of what led to the Korean War, and the monarchy was dissolved. So, but again, as a monarch, hopefully he has quite a availability of biography and family lineage. Although, because he was a first and last monarch, I don't know if his lineage is considered relevant or not. So we'll see. So Jayapil, if you can open him up, I want to make sure I'm not confusing him with another one. Let's look at the top of his biography. Just give me a little reminder. He was a social activist. Oh yes, okay. And he protested the Japanese occupation, wound up going into exile in the United States. He became a medical doctor, and he was the very first Korean ever to become a United States citizen. He eventually went back to Korea, kind of back and forth. He had a very rocky relationship with his home country. I believe he died. He went back to Korea, but ended up in the United States in the end and died in the United States. Changed his name to Philip. So he has both the Korean name and the English name. And it looks like my sources are, well, I guess I just have to fix that little.
Yeah, but that's a good example. It's like David does so much work, and little typos like that can happen.
Yeah.
Well, it's like
they do. And I could proofread it 5 times, and then I post it, and sure enough, there's the errors.
Yeah, but that's the thing about WikiTree. You can collaborate, and like if there's a little error like that, you just go in and fix it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what happens with the proofreading is you see the error and you don't notice it, and then it becomes normalized. So no matter how many times you look at it, you don't see it. But the other thing, again, I mentioned this before, don't be afraid to change anything. If you don't think that I've got the names put in there correctly, the names of the countries are difficult because, or the cities and states, provinces, because they change. So I may have the modern name and you want to put in the name at the time. Go ahead and change that. I'm not possessive of any of this. It's up there. You guys do what you need to do to make it correct. Okay, so the next person on the list. Okay, Syngman Rhee. He was the first president of South Korea. A little bit of a ruthless, I don't know that he was considered a dictator, but a very powerful individual. Did not necessarily treat his people very well, but he's very prominent in South Korean history, again, being the very first president of that country. Nae Hae-suk. I've got quite a few women on this time. She is a feminist writer and painter. She was considered the first professional female artist in Korea. I'm not sure how you qualify as professional in Korea, but that's what she's defined as. And she also did a lot of writing with a feminist slant. She did not like, as we found in almost every country we've done, did not like the way women were treated in her country and was outspoken about it. We also have another social activist here, Yu Guan-sun. She protested against the Japanese occupation, and she wound up paying with her life at age 18. She died in a Japanese prison. But she is kind of a folk hero at this point in South Korea, considered one of the legends of the South Korean or the Korean fight for independence against Japan. Another woman here is Ho Jong-suk. I have her down as a social activist, but she was actually a politician. She held several significant offices in the communist government of Korea. She was a minister of justice. She was the head of the Supreme Court. So a very early female political leader. It's also very interesting to me. As I said, we have a lot of feminist activists, but at the same time, most of the countries we've been to have female politicians and government leaders long before the United States had them. So, or at least to any significant degree. So, particularly in the communist countries, I find a lot of women that rose to significant positions. Lee Byung-chul, and I've got a little bit of a spelling error in a couple of that should be a dash, not an equal sign. But Lee Byung-chul, founder of Samsung. I know I have a Samsung TV right here next to me. Most of us have Samsung products of one sort or another.
Yeah, Samsung phone.
He's got his phone, yeah. So, pretty important person, not only in Korea but in the technological history of the world. So that'll be interesting. And again, I don't get to do a lot of research into the details, so I'm curious to go back and find out more about how these people came to be in the positions they did. Nam Sung-yong, he is a Korean athlete. I always like to include an athlete or two in our list. It was hard to find Korean athletes, deceased Korean athletes. There's a lot of current athletes, but Nam Sung-yong was a track and field runner. He won a bronze medal in the Olympics, I think, I want to say 1930s, so fairly early on. Yeah,
1936.
36, yeah. Yeah. Now, I don't know if everybody knows, we now have an Olympic project that's pretty massive over on the Notable Sports project. So when we do these Olympians for the global project, we can go back and make a link to their profiles over on the Olympic project as well. So that's kind of cool. A lot of I like when we have crossovers with other projects. Masayama, we looked at his. He's the one with the long name. He's a martial artist. I don't know a lot about martial arts, but he's the founder of one of the more prominent formats of karate. So people in the know will probably know his name or know who he is. Okay, this next one, Chow Eun-hee. She is a very interesting story. She was the most famous actress in South Korea. And then one day, she and her ex-husband were kidnapped, and they were taken to North Korea. And for 10 years, they were forced to make movies in North Korea. And after 10 years, they escaped to the US Embassy in Vienna. They went to the United States for 10 years, and then they went back to South Korea. But the goings on in North Korea are just so incomprehensible at times that you could actually kidnap the most famous actress in the country and take her to your country and force her to make movies.
That's
Whether or
wild.
not the movies were any good, I have no idea. But for 10 years, that's what she and her husband did, her ex-husband. So that's going to be an interesting story to sort out. Then we got Nam June Paik. He's an artist. He's considered the father of video art. I'm not exactly sure what video art is. So I'm going to do some more research on that to find out. I got a little bit of an idea. But he, if you click on his name, I want to get the quote correct. He coined the term, make sure I say it. Yeah, the electronic superhighway. So so when you hear that term, the superhighway, referring to the internet and technology today, that came from him. So I'll be interested to see. I saw a little bit of his art on, when I was researching him. He's got some interesting stuff, but very much a modern day artist. And he died in Miami, Florida. So I'm not sure what he was doing there. I don't know if he was visiting or if he has American connections now. But he very well may have some records available in Florida. So we'll see. And then the next two, I've got to get pictures up, but we've got our current prime minister and our current president. As we talked about before, I have to do their photos on another free space page in order for them to show. They should be up on their actual profile pages. And those are our only two living individuals. We very rarely connect our living prime ministers and presidents, but we did do it on Luxembourg, as we talked about earlier. So maybe we'll get lucky on these two. And then our final one is film director Kim Ki-duk. He won numerous awards at international film festivals. He was, I don't think he was nominated, but he was proposed for an Academy Award as best foreign film from South Korea. So, quite prominent in his country. A little bit younger, so I don't know if that is going to make access to his records easier or more difficult. In the United States and some of the Western countries, modern records are harder to come by. But in a lot of the Asian and African countries, the older records are not only harder to come by, but sometimes they don't even exist. So we'll see how that plays out with South Korea. So there we got it. It's going to be a challenge. I'm confident in our team. They've surprised me 12 times so far. So let's see if they can surprise me each time I say I'm not sure they can do this, but every time they do. So we'll see what we get. And again, even if we don't get the connections, if we can clean up some of their profiles, get some of these fascinating stories up there, that's great too. So those of you that aren't comfortable with research in some of these countries, again, that's fine. There's other things that we can use your help with, because our main team does tend to get focused on the. I don't think I have my link up here yet, so I'll get the link up right now. But the other country, I'm sorry, our primary team gets focused on the connections. So we definitely can use people that can go back and just kind of clean up our research work.
And I'm dropping the links for the main 15 nations page and then the new countries space page into the chat there. And I'll add it to the description of the video as well when we're done.
And for those that aren't familiar with our project, we leave the prior project countries open. So if you don't want to work on South Korea, you can go back and try to help us connect some of the prior notables from our prior 12 countries. Or you know, if you're not into researching, you can just go in and help us clean them up, do some bio writing, and you know,
Run the
maybe
suggestions report for
proofreading.
them for the,
I'm sorry.
you know, run bio check maybe on the profiles or
Bio
run
check.
the suggestions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great. So
there's
have any of the countries that you did before, have any of those unconnected notables been connected now?
we have had people go back and connect some from prior countries.
That's awesome.
Particularly
That'd be
India
something.
is interesting because India was our first one and we really struggled with it. And some of our members, one or two of us went back and just a few weeks ago went back and connected a couple more. And it was a lot easier after you know, almost what are we now, 10 months into the project. There's just little tricks and stuff that we know now that I think we didn't perhaps know back when we were in India.
That might be
You know, but
something.
you look at, if you go back to that screen you were just on in India, so there, that second individual, scroll up just a little bit. Right there, you've got Ravi Shankar. He's what's her name? His daughter is Nora.
Nora
What's the
Jones.
famous thing? Nora Jones.
Okay.
Yeah, I had no idea when I put him up there. But yeah, that was an interesting connection to make.
Yeah.
But if you scroll up a little bit further, I love looking at some of the old pictures, but you've got oh no, where did I see it? Maybe it was down. Oh, okay, you were in the second section. Yeah, if you scroll down to the second section, so down below.
Oh, the second section. Okay.
Okay, so the second section was added later. These are some 50 notables that are all connected to the 15 originals. And through our research, we were able to find, I think it's about 50 individuals who have Wikipedia pages of their own, considered notables that are directly related to the original 15. But when you look at an individual like this second here, the one in that sepia tone picture, you know, lived back in the 1800s in India. You know, the fact that our team was able to find those records and get them connected to somebody that was already on WikiTree, it really fascinates me how they're able to do that.
So we have a question from the chat for Argentina.
Argentina was a very popular country.
So Vicky's asking, she has photos of Argentinian graves.
We don't have a special rule for photos. We you know, it's the rules are no different than for any other profile. You know, if you've got something specific that you think is relevant to that individual, you'll go ahead and upload it. We do like to try to find portraits, but I usually I'll say I don't select them as a notable if I can't find a portrait. So they're all going to have a portrait already up there. But for notables in general, we like to try to find portraits. They need to be copyright free. You know, so be careful of that.
I'm dropping that into the chat. Yeah, because that is something, if it's a photo you took, then yeah, please add those. That'd be great. If it's a photo that somebody else took and it's on like Find a Grave or Ancestry or something, you need to get permission from the person who took the photo. And a lot of times on Find a Grave, if you go to that person's profile, the person who took the picture has a profile on Find a Grave. Sometimes they'll have on their page that you can go ahead and share any of their pictures. So some of them have that already ready to go for you, so you know you can share them. but it looks like Vicky did take the pictures, so that answers the
If
question
you took
there.
them, then you're free to post them. That's
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that would be
and
great.
also every country has their own rules on copyright expiration. But because so many of the notables that we choose are from the 1800s and early 1900s, we can usually find photographs that are in the public domain due to their age.
Yeah.
But if you're not sure about that, it's always best to check with a project leader or somebody who would know. We have had a couple instances in the notables of people contacting us saying, "Take that picture down. That's my picture." So we want to avoid that. Most people are fairly friendly about it, and as long as we take it down, it's okay. But they don't have to be. They can get kind of nasty if they choose to. So we don't want to run into that kind of situation.
Yeah, and
Um,
even pictures that are on Wikimedia, if it has on there that you need to give attribution to the photographer, you can take the image and maybe add to the photo, like the edge of the photo, like the person's name taken by or photo copyright to or whatever, because they'll have on there that it's free, it's okay to share, but you need to give them attribution.
Yeah,
So
sometimes they'll have a list of rules that you need to follow if you're going to share, that you have to link to something, you have to link to the
yeah,
license. So it just depends. And then other people say, "Hey, here's my picture. Do what you want with it." So
right, yeah.
so it really depends. I didn't realize it was getting so dark here. I'm going to turn the light on. Sun's going down.
So that'd be something cool to see on here, is that if we had another columnist showed how many are connected versus unconnected. I don't know, just an
Okay,
idea.
so when this is all over, we
Yeah.
end on WikiTree Day weekend.
Oh,
We
that's right.
will
We're gonna have a wrap up, like a
we're going
complete
to have a
wrap up
wrap
of
up,
the
and
project.
we're going to have an official. I'm going to do a 1 hour presentation on the new global project.
Wow.
We'll show
Yeah.
you some samples of pages, etc. So that's something for people to look forward to. Again, we are going to have all 195 countries. I can't guarantee they're all going to be open on January 1st because it's a lot of work, but they'll at least be in place to be opened.
That's so exciting.
The
Yeah.
oh, I forgot what I was going to say with the Oh, I lost my train of thought with that, but
The
okay.
showing the
Um,
connected versus unconnected, is that what you were gonna
oh,
say?
yes, I'm sorry. So we will also have a page that summarizes our global tour, and we will have a list of all the unconnected
Oh, nice.
and a list of the connected. And that way, there'll be one place people can go if you want to continue to work on the ones that did not connected. And all of the individual pages will stay up. We're not going to delete them. So they'll be up forever if
Yeah.
somebody wants to go to a particular page. But they'll pretty much be transferred, like the Luxembourg page will be transferred into a Luxembourg project. We already have a manager for the Luxembourg project in place. So
Wow,
that's why it'll
great.
be up early. And he'll pretty much take all that information and put it onto his project page. So there'll be that, but we will have a global tour summary
Yeah.
where you can see who's left to be connected. We're at about, I think we've connected about a third of our profiles, and I think in the end we'll have something like 215 profiles altogether.
Wow,
So
great job.
we've connected quite a few,
Yeah.
but I'll have all those numbers when we're done on
Yeah.
WikiTree Day.
Great job.
But I must say, like, this project is like brought up so many interesting things, like the language issues, like how people's names are put in. With the last country, Luxembourg, how do we deal with gay marriage? Like how would that work out?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. If we're not doing, if you're just sort of stuck in your US centered thing, or in a country that's sort of, how to put it, Western, you don't know these sorts of things. And one of the things, like WikiTree started out as an American-based country, so like you got your middle name fields and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This tour has brought up, hey, this is something that we might need to work on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really great. It's becoming more and more of a global site.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what the idea behind the global project is if you log on to WikiTree from another country and you see nothing related to your country anywhere, you're not going to stick around. But if you can find that we actually have a page, um, someplace for you to kind of base yourself, maybe other people that are already researching that country, um, we may become the global genealogy site. That would be my ideal goal. But yeah, Darren's right. It's just so much that we've learned. I had no idea when we started this project where it was going to go, and we talk about it as a world tour, and it is like we've been literally touring the world. I've learned so much about all these different countries beyond just the genealogy. It's really as if I've you know done a 3-week tour in each of these places. So
Well, and like
it's
you guys
fascinating,
mentioned, you start out in one country and you quickly go to other
and you do,
countries. So
and you find out how they're all connected, and why people left and what was going on in the countries that, because each one of these countries, we learn about them, at least, I know here in the United States, we learn kind of where these countries are maybe, but that's about it, unless they're a major country, say England or Russia or something like that. We don't learn about the history of South Korea or the history of Luxembourg. And they've got some really interesting um, historical stories of their own, and that's been
mhm,
fascinating to and how it ties in to what you do know about world history and American history.
yeah,
I know that the Korean War occurred, but Korea was there for hundreds of years before the Korean War. We
right.
don't learn about that. This emperor of the Korea, I didn't know Korea had an emperor, so that's going to be interesting to
I
read
did.
about him. You did? Yeah, I don't know what they learn in other countries, so
Yeah.
um, but
But yeah, it's got to be interesting. There's probably got to be. You've probably got to find connections to Japan quite easily. Quite a few going to China, and then of course you got Koreans. Like you might have connections, like someone who was over there during the Korean War,
hmm
and
mhm.
it's like you get a British soldier who decided to marry a Korean girl, and that
Right.
could be your connection.
Yeah. Yep.
Because of
Yep.
course, Korean
It's going to
War,
be
like
exciting to see where you guys take it, where it goes.
yeah,
Yep, we'll be back in 3 weeks to let you know how it went. Hopefully, some of our non-members our non-tour members will decide to join us on this part of the tour. The more the merrier. We did in Luxembourg. We had a few new people join in. That
Oh,
was kind
that's
of cool
great.
to have some new voices.
All right. Well, and make sure everybody to give the video a thumbs up. That
thumbs
really
up.
helps us out. And then if you're wanting to watch another broadcast sometime, we do have a live cast coming out tomorrow on Wednesday, Ask Alesh. So you can tune into that. And Greg's going to be the one that's going to host that for us. So subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications for new broadcasts coming out. All right. Thank you, David. And thank you, Jared, for joining
Thank you,
us.
everybody.
We'll
Okay.
see you later.
Have a good